Do you think an underground skyscraper is possible? Because this is actually something that Angus and I have talked about as far as building a self-sustaining community is concerned, because you could utilize like geothermal energy so much better if you could do something like that. And the fact that they're able to build size skyscrapers above ground in, earthquake zones like California and keep them standing even through all the earthquakes indicates that it's likely they have the technology to make it possible. And then, of course, if you drill down low enough to where you're literally building on top of the bedrock, it seems quite likely that you're not going to run into issues of like the building sinking or something like that. But if you could build a skyscraper underground, you could basically have like this massive town existing in just this one massive building, and then the whole ground above would show no indication it was there, which to me just seems kind of freaking awesome. And it's not, that I want to hide away or anything like that. I think you could make a big like show of it or everything, have huge like signage and be like, this is where we are kind of thing, which would be fun, but it's just kind of the mystery of it, and it's just fun, hobbit hole type of thing, except a whole city, like a whole town just buried underground. I think there would likely be a lot of benefits to it other than, the geothermal heating and so on and so forth. One of the concepts that I've come up with, that I have no idea what the viability of it would be, but essentially this idea of surrounding the entire thing with like a massive aquarium where you can literally breed tuna and other fish, and you can actually like sell the tuna and the meat and whatnot as they grow, for profit for the community, because it's a self-sustaining community. So ideally you wouldn't necessarily need people to be like paying rent. They would just own a piece of it. So that I think would be really cool. And I know that whenever I go to aquariums, I just love seeing all of the fish in there. So I think it would be a freaking awesome idea. Little hesitant about the notion that tuna fish eat other fish, and you might be able to see that. And then, of course, you need to figure out drainage, because if you wind up with a leak or something, that would not be great to be going across the floor of the skyscraper. Except it wouldn't be a skyscraper, the ground scraper, maybe. I don't know. Massive building, the massive underground city, like the city of Ember, So you need some kind of drainage to ensure the water isn't just like going across the floor or drowning people on the lower level. That would be bad. And then, of course, if you have underground lakes, I don't know how that plays into it, or underground rivers, because I do know you've got a water table, and the viability is not a thing I know how to figure out. However, I do think it would be really freaking awesome. And one of the reasons why I like the idea of an underground town is that you could literally use the upper area, the land over the building or around the building or whatever you want to do, trap tunnels or something where you can escape above the surface with staircases. I don't know, but you could literally use the ground for agriculture. You could plant your plants, you could raise your animals, you could have your chickens, you could do hydroponic farming or vermiponic farming, which is personally the one that I'd find very interesting more than any of the others. Probably because it's a little bit easier for an individual, but you could always do aquaponics, have fish and your vegetables grown in the same area, massive like, greenhouses and stuff. Those vertical farms just look freaking awesome. My sister does have some viable points in that plants are not like naturally supposed to grow that way, so it's possible it would have a detrimental effect on the growth process, but it seems like hydroponics really is pretty effective at growing at least really good food for people. And if you like the idea of like a more plant-based diet, then hydroponic farming for the local town is an excellent way to go about it. So I think that would be really cool. But these are kind of the ideas that Angus and I talk about when we talk about building a community, when we talk about building a tribe, when we talk about building our family. We want to have all of these friends. We want to be in community with other people. We want to have, friends. We want you there. You know, and it's not because we want control or anything like that. Like, literally, we don't know how to do any of this stuff. We literally need other people's brains to help figure this stuff out. Because if you could create a community like this, like, you could literally have a football field on one of the levels and that's your recreation center. You could host, you know, events and have massive groups of people, and you can make it as big as you want to, really, and nobody even knows because it's underground. But you can literally do all these things. Like, we were watching The Future Of, and they talked about how potentially in the future you can be building skyscrapers with living material. You know, you could have trees building the edges of the skyscraper, or using mycelium, you know, the roots of mushrooms to make bricks out of, and having living floors and things like that. So utilizing technology like that would be awesome. And then you can have literal towns in that one building, but then you can do the underground aspect, which makes it even cooler. And overall, it's just a massive project that you'd be bringing in and making more self-sustaining and making more economically viable, making more environmentally friendly. There are just so many different aspects to it. But it takes so much knowledge. It takes so much creativity. You know, people need to actually explore these things. We need to have the opportunity to allow people to actually put more time into this research. We need to allow people the opportunity to not be so set on figuring out how to survive. You know, that's something that we struggle with right now. That's something we're trying to work our way out of. And the fact that we even think that's possible is kind of insane in our modern society. You know, most people are just trapped, and they feel trapped, and they don't feel like there's an option. So creating an environment where people don't have that constant tension. I don't know why people think that innovation comes from stress. That's been proven over and over not to be the case. Like, people are much more productive when they're not terrified. How is that hard to figure out? I don't know. But if you want to create a better life, a better world, we kind of need to be moving in the direction of Star Trek. And I know Star Trek is just one example, and there are a couple other examples of kind of like this open society type of model. Jordan Peterson talks a lot about, or not a lot, he talks about a form of society which I think is very viable, where basically you work on yourself and then you branch out and you take care of more as you develop as a person, which is kind of like it doesn't require governance, which I think is great. If you can manage a system like that, if you can educate people in that way, that's fantastic. I do not have that education, so we'd probably need to bring Jordan Peterson in on this at some point. Just saying. But to bring in all of those minds and then to genuinely like move our society in a positive direction, to allow people the opportunity to explore all these different avenues and come up with all these different ideas, to escape the strain of technology that's kind of eliminating the possibility for us to take care of ourselves at this point, would be excellent. And I think it's horrible that we haven't actually done the kind of things we need to do to take care of people. And I understand why, to a certain extent. You know, we live in a very competitive society right now, and then as the amount of resources, accessible resources, not actually resources, goes down, the tensions rise, and then you become even more competitive, which is just a shit show, honestly. So this whole concept of, you know, I understand why we were in this position. It's because of the way that our economy has functioned up till now. But with the way that technology is advancing, we are rapidly moving toward a technologic singularity, which means an economic singularity. And an economic singularity basically means 90% of society struggles and or dies, and 10% live high on the hog. And while that may seem cool for the 10%, it's probably going to be a very tumultuous and violent type of environment, which I wouldn't want to live in, even if I were in the 10%, which I am most definitely not right now, but am working toward. So ideally, we'll have the funds that we can at least survive. That'd be great. But, you know, I don't think we need to to do this alone. In fact, we can't do this alone anymore. It is not a viable option. We cannot approach life as individuals anymore. It will not work. We are rapidly moving away from an individual society like that. And honestly, we never really lived in one. We are so influenced by our social environment, it's not even funny. Like, I'm reading a couple books right now as part of education process that Angus and I are working in, and it's about the influence of your social environment on you. And just reading through the process, you're like, holy cow, like there is so much that is determined just by other people. You naturally react, you naturally mimic people you're talking to. Like, if you're watching this video and you're interested in it, you're probably doing very similar movements to what I'm doing right now. When I smile, you smile. When I laugh, you laugh. That's just how humans interact. And it goes across the board. Like, everything we do is mimicry or is influenced by other people. You know, you only like the cars you like because you see them. And that's in fact true of humans as well. Like, people think attraction is like a set thing, that you're only attracted to the people that you're attracted to because you have a type or whatever. But pretty much every couple I've ever met, the individuals in that coupling are like, I never thought I would marry this person. And the same actually goes for me and my husband. Neither Angus nor I looked at the other initially and went, this is my person. This is the person I'm going to be married to for the rest of time. You know, we both kind of went, you're okay, but I really like who you are inside, because we'd met online. You know, we got to know each other a little bit as individuals before we saw each other. So we were like, hey, let's see if we can build a relationship out of it. And then as we've gotten to know each other better, we've become more attracted. Same actually applies to any attraction, really, supposedly, according to the science. I'm not going to say that I verified this scientific research or anything, but the notion that you are more attracted to people you see most often seems to be completely valid. They run studies on it. So we are so influenced by our environment, by our social environment, that it's not even funny. And knowing that, I think, is immensely helpful. But then also taking that and utilizing it to create a better world. Like, the reason we are where we are is because we worked together, because we have combined the knowledge of humanity, because we've innovated together. And for whatever reason, in the last however many years or whatever, we've opted for hiding things and squandering the truth and attacking and competing, which isn't necessarily bad. Competition can be a very beneficial thing, but not in this instance, where we've taken it too far and now we need to find the other solutions. So this concept of a underground skyscraper, ground scraper, is a fascinating one to me. And it's just kind of like a dream concept, I think. I think it'd be fun to explore. I like coming up with ideas. I like dreaming about things. So who knows if it'll look like this or not? Who knows if it will even be something remotely interesting to look at if we actually created it in real life. But the truth of the matter is, the idea here is to get you dreaming, to get you seeing the world that I'm seeing and want us to move toward, because I think it's going to be really freaking awesome. And if we can do it fast enough, we could actually build so many different communities, you know, that are individual enough that they fit the people living in them, to where nobody has to suffer when the economic singularity hits. We can create the Star Trek universe now. That's pretty cool. Like, we have that power, and I know it doesn't feel that way. And I know that we don't necessarily have like the answer of how to get there, but I'm pretty sure if we combine our efforts, we can. And I'm pretty sure I've got a lot of solutions, or at least a lot of potentials and ideas that can help spur or spark new concepts as well. So that's what this video is mostly about. I want to get you dreaming. I want to see what you can come up with. Like, what ideas inspire you? Where do you see us going? What solutions do you see? Like, mention those below. Let's talk about it. Let's get this conversation going. Why we aren't having these conversations more, I don't know. Everybody's all doom and gloom. We need solutions, people. Like, this is crazy. So let's start building. Let's start creating. Let's start dreaming about what we want the future to look like, and then make it happen.